August 31st, 1943. 22,000 feet above the deep blue of the western Pacific, east of Marcus Island. The air is thin, sharp, and vibrating with engine noise. Sunlight flashes off canopies and wings as if the sky itself were splintering. Inside a pale green cockpit, trimmed with chipped paint and salt-stained gauges, Petty Officer First Class Saburo Sakai eases the stick forward, eyes scanning the horizon. His aircraft light, elegant, deadly, is perfectly at home here. Below him, the ocean stretches endlessly, a flat steel mirror broken only by distant whitecaps. This is his sky. For nearly 2 years, Japanese naval aviators like Sakai have ruled it. The Imperial Japanese Navy entered the war with pilots who were not merely trained, but forged. Thousands of flight hours. Brutal attrition-based schooling. Dogfighting drilled until instinct replaced thought. Their aircraft, especially the Mitsubishi A6M0, were extensions of their bodies feather-light, razor-responsive, able to turn inside anything the enemy could throw at them. And the enemy had learned that the hard way. Sakai rolls left, the Zero responding instantly, barely bleeding speed. The engine hums smoothly, no armor plate to weigh it down, no self-sealing fuel tanks to dull performance. Everything unnecessary has been stripped away in pursuit of one thing: dominance in the air. Below, a formation of American bombers creeps toward Marcus Island, their escorts lagging behind, struggling to maintain altitude. The Japanese pilots spot them first. They always do. The radio crackles with clipped Japanese commands. Attack vectors are assigned: altitude, sun position, escape routes already calculated in the minds of men who have done this dozens of times before. There is no hesitation. The Zeros dive. Wind screams over the fuselage as Sakai lines up behind a bomber, the glass nose swelling in his sights. He squeezes the trigger, cannons thud, tracers tear forward, aluminum skin peels back, smoke erupts. This is how the war in the air has gone since December 1941. From Pearl Harbor to the Philippines, from Malaya to the Dutch East Indies, Japanese aces carved through Allied formations with terrifying efficiency. American pilots, many barely trained, rushed through flight schools, found themselves flying heavier aircraft that couldn't turn, couldn't climb, and couldn't escape once a Zero latched on. The early dogfights were massacres. In the mess halls and briefing rooms of U.S. Navy carriers, the Zero becomes something more than an enemy aircraft. It becomes a ghost story. Pilots whisper about its impossible turns, about how it seems to hang in the air, waiting for you to make a mistake. Many never get the chance to learn from that mistake. Back above Marcus Island, Sakai pulls up hard, bleeding speed but gaining position. Another Zero flashes past his canopy, one of his wingmen, face calm, eyes focused. They have done this together before. They trust each other completely. Trust, discipline, and experience. These are the Japanese advantages. But even as Sakai lines up for another pass, something is beginning to change. The American escorts are different now. Not the lumbering wildcats of 1942, gasping to keep up. These new fighters climb faster. They dive harder. They don't turn, but they don't need to. They slash through the sky in fast, brutal passes, firing and disengaging before the Zeros can trap them in a turning fight. Sakai notices it first as a blur, a dark blue shape streaking downward, engine roaring with a deeper, angrier sound. It doesn't linger. It hits, fires, and vanishes into a vertical climb that no Zero can follow. He frowns. These pilots aren't panicking anymore. They're disciplined, coordinated, dangerous. Somewhere far behind the front lines, American engineers and tacticians have been watching the slaughter, studying wreckage, interrogating captured pilots, timing climbs and turns with stopwatches and slide rules. They have learned what not to do against the Zero. And now, they are bringing something new into the fight. Sakai banks again, feeling the familiar lightness of his aircraft, still confident but no longer dismissive. The sky is changing. The rules are shifting. The era where Japanese aces could dominate through skill alone is nearing its end, though none of them know it yet. Above the Pacific, in the contrails and engine noise, the first warning signs are already written. The hunters are about to be hunted. September 1943, USS Essex, Philippine Sea, dawn. The carrier deck is slick with spray and oil humming with restrained violence. Deck crews crouch low as engines howl, their colored jerseys snapping in the wind. One by one, American fighters roll forward, tails lifting, propellers clawing at the air as they surge down the deck and leap into the sky. These men are no longer green. Lieutenant Commander John S. Thatch watches the launches from the island, arms folded, eyes narrowed. He has spent years thinking about the Zero, how it fights, how it wins, and more importantly, how it dies. He learned the hard way, watching friends vanish in spirals of smoke because they tried to outturn an aircraft that lived for the turn. So he changed the rules. Up here at altitude, 2 American fighters cruise in loose formation, wingtips far apart. Below them, the Pacific glitters deceptively calm. Their radios crackle contact bearing north, Angels 15. The pilots tense, hands tightening on the stick. Dark shapes rise to meet them. Zeros. The Japanese pilots still fly with confidence. They always do. Their formations are tight, disciplined, beautiful in motion. Aces with rows of victory flags painted beneath their cockpits slide into attack positions, certain of the outcome. They have seen this before. The Americans don't turn. Instead, the two U.S. fighters cross toward each other, closing the gap fast. So fast, it looks like a collision is inevitable. A Zero commits, lining up on one American's tail fixated on the kill, and the trap snaps shut. As the American fighters cross, both open fire. Tracers converge in a lethal X. The Zero has no room to maneuver. Its wings shudder, then tear away in a burst of flame and fabric. The maneuver has a name now, the Thatch Weave. And it works. Across the Pacific, from carrier decks to forward island strips, American pilots are being retrained not just to fly, but to survive. They are taught discipline over bravado, teamwork over individual glory. Dogfights are no longer romantic duels. They are coordinated executions. The Japanese pilots feel it. Petty Officer Sakai notices it in the way engagements end faster now. No prolonged turning battles, no easy stragglers. The Americans hit hard and leave. They protect each other. They refuse to fight on Japanese terms. And still, the Zero remains lethal but fragile. One lucky hit, one tracer through an unprotected fuel tank, and the aircraft becomes a torch. Japanese engineers know it. Pilots know it. But doctrine does not change easily, and neither does pride. Meanwhile, American industry is awakening. Back home, factories run day and night. Rivets hammer into place. New aircraft roll off assembly lines faster than Japanese planners ever believed possible. Where Japan must preserve its veteran pilots like precious relics, the United States trains replacements in staggering numbers. But numbers alone won't win the sky. What's coming next will. Out over the Philippine Sea, Sakai finds himself diving away from another American fighter. This one heavier, faster in the dive than anything he's faced before. He pulls up sharply, trusting the Zero's legendary climb, but the American aircraft does not stall out beneath him. It follows. Its engine roars with brute power, propeller biting hard, dragging the aircraft upward in a climb that should be impossible for something so large. Sakai feels a flicker of unease as tracers streak past his canopy. This isn't just better tactics. This is a better machine. Word spreads quietly among Japanese squadrons. Rumors of a new American fighter. Bigger, armored, able to take punishment and keep flying. It doesn't turn well, but it doesn't need to. It dives, climbs, and kills with ruthless efficiency. Japanese aces begin to adapt, pushing their aircraft harder, taking greater risks. Some succeed, many don't. Every loss hurts more now, because replacements arrive with fewer hours, less seasoning eyes wide with fear rather than confidence. The balance is shifting. On the Essex, Thatch watches another strike group disappear into the clouds. He knows what's coming. The Navy has finally given its pilots an aircraft designed not to impress, but to win. An aircraft built not for elegance, but for vengeance. And when it arrives in full force, the sky over the Pacific will never belong to the Japanese aces again. October 6th, 1943, 18,000 feet above Wake Island. The sky trembles with raw power. Lieutenant David McCampbell presses forward in his seat as the aircraft beneath him surges ahead, its engine bellowing like a living thing. This fighter feels nothing like the Wildcat he once flew. This one doesn't plead for altitude. It takes it. The Grumman F6F Hellcat is brutally unapologetic broad wings, thick fuselage, armored glass, and 650 caliber machine guns packed into the wings like clenched fists. It is not graceful. It is not subtle. It is purpose-built to kill the Zero. McCampbell spots them first, 3 Japanese fighters glinting in the sun, climbing lazily, confident in their dominance. They haven't seen him yet. He throttles back slightly, angling to keep the sun behind him. The Hellcat responds with stability, no wobble, no protest. He dives. The acceleration is immediate and terrifying. Airspeed builds faster than his mind can process. The Hellcat screams downward, wings rock solid, engine roaring with over 2,000 horsepower, driving him straight into history. The Japanese pilots see him too late. One Zero breaks hard left, another pulls up, trusting instinct and muscle memory honed over years. McCampbell doesn't follow them into the turn. He doesn't need to. He fires once short, controlled bursts. The Zero ahead of him explodes in flame and debris, its fragile frame shredding under the Hellcat's concentrated firepower. McCampbell pulls up into a vertical climb that would have been suicide in earlier aircraft. The Hellcat keeps climbing. Behind him, a Japanese pilot tries to follow and stalls. The Zero hangs in the air for a fatal second before dropping into a spin. McCampbell rolls over the top, nose dropping back down with crushing momentum. Another burst. Another kill. For the first time in the Pacific War, Japanese pilots face an aircraft that outmatches them in the vertical, shrugs off damage that would have obliterated a Zero, and punishes mistakes with ruthless finality. Word spreads fast. Back in Japanese ready rooms, combat reports grow grim. Pilots describe American fighters that won't burn, that keep flying with holes in their wings, that dive away faster than pursuit allows. Aces, accustomed to dictating the terms of combat, now find themselves reacting always a step behind. The Hellcat doesn't care about finesse. It thrives on discipline. It rewards patience. It allows American pilots to survive mistakes and live long enough to learn. And they do. Carrier after carrier fields squadrons of Hellcats. They arrive faster than the Japanese can count them. Each one represents not just an aircraft, but an entire system radar-guided interceptions, coordinated fighter direction, standardized training. This is industrial warfare in the sky. Petty Officer Sakai encounters them weeks later near the Marshalls. He sees one absorb hits that should have torn it apart. He watches another climb away from him, engine thundering, refusing to slow. He realizes, with cold clarity, that skill alone is no longer enough. The Hellcat has changed the equation. No longer do Japanese aces stalk inexperienced prey. Now they are hunted by formations that fight as one, flying machines that forgive errors and punish overconfidence. Above the Pacific, the balance of power tips not gradually but violently. The era of Japanese air supremacy is ending, and the reckoning has only just begun. June 19th, 1944. Erdo 7.42 hours. 15,000 feet above the Philippine Sea. The radar screens light up first. Blips, dozens of them, appear far beyond the horizon, moving fast, converging on the American carrier task force. In the darkened combat information center below decks, voices rise, fingers stab at plotting boards. Bearings are called out, altitudes estimated, vectors calculated. Above, the sky waits. On the flight deck of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, engines howl as Hellcats launch in rapid succession. Blue-gray fighters claw upward, forming loose but disciplined formations that stretch across miles of sky. Lieutenant Commander David McCampbell leads his group higher, always higher, chasing the sun. He knows what's coming. Intelligence has warned them. The Japanese are throwing everything they have left, and that is the tragedy. The Japanese formations arrive in waves bombers escorted by fighters flown by young men with barely a fraction of the experience their predecessors once had. Many have never landed on a carrier at night. Some have barely fired their guns in anger. They are sent anyway. The first wave breaks through the clouds and meets a wall of Hellcats. American pilots don't chase. They climb above, roll in from the sun, and attack with discipline bordering on cold-blooded precision. Zeros try to turn instincts screaming at them to fight the old way, but the Hellcats refuse to follow. Instead, they dive through the formations, guns blazing, then pull away, climbing back into safety. The sky fills with smoke, fire, and falling aircraft. McCampbell fires again and again, each burst short, each kill methodical. He watches a Japanese bomber disintegrate under concentrated fire, then snaps his aircraft into a climb that leaves its escorts gasping below. This is not a battle. It is an execution. Below, American carriers remain untouched. Above, Japanese aircraft vanish in horrifying numbers. Pilots call out kills faster than radio operators can log them. Some aviators lose count entirely. By mid-morning, the ocean is littered with wreckage and parachutes, too few of the latter. Japanese pilots press on regardless. They have been taught that retreat is dishonor. But courage cannot overcome physics. It cannot overcome radar, training numbers, and the Hellcat's brutal superiority. Petty Officer Sakai is not here. Many of the old aces are gone by now, killed, wounded, or grounded by a war that no longer values experience over sacrifice. Those who remain watch helplessly as the sky becomes a graveyard. By the end of the day, hundreds of Japanese aircraft are destroyed. American losses are so light that pilots later speak of the battle with a name that feels almost obscene in its casual cruelty. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The Hellcat has done exactly what it was designed to do. Japanese naval aviation never recovers. From this point on, the Imperial Navy fights defensively, desperately, throwing increasingly untrained pilots into increasingly hopeless missions. The balance of power is no longer in question. The skies belong to the Americans now. As the sun sets over the Philippine Sea, Hellcats return to their carriers, wings folded, engines ticking as they cool. Pilots climb out, faces streaked with sweat and oil, shaken not by fear but by the scale of what they've just witnessed. They have not just won a battle. They have broken an empire's wings. July 1944, a scorched airfield on Saipan, late afternoon. The wind drags dust across the pierced steel planking, rattling against wrecked hangars and abandoned fuel drums. What was once a Japanese forward airbase is now quiet, unnervingly so. No engines warming, no pilots shouting over prop wash. Just heat, wreckage, and the distant thud of naval guns far offshore. A lone Zero sits at the edge of the field, its paint bleached and flaking, bullet holes stitched across its wings. It will never fly again. This is what remains of Japanese naval air power. In the months following the catastrophe over the Philippine Sea, the reality becomes impossible to deny. The veteran corps, the elite cadre that once ruled the Pacific, has been shattered. Those pilots took years to create and minutes to destroy. There is no reserve to draw from, no industrial depth to replace them. Across the ocean, American carriers multiply. Hellcats prowl with near impunity now, escorting bombers, strafing airfields, intercepting anything that dares rise into the sky. Japanese pilots still fight, sometimes with astonishing bravery, but the imbalance is absolute. In briefing rooms, American officers mark enemy air contacts with routine efficiency. Interceptions are planned, executed, and logged like factory work. The romance of air combat has vanished, replaced by grim professionalism. Lieutenant Commander McCampbell stands on a carrier deck once more, watching the horizon. His face is older now, eyes harder. He has become the Navy's top ace, not through reckless daring, but through discipline, choosing when to fight, when to disengage, when to live. That is the Hellcat's legacy. It does not demand perfection. It forgives hesitation. It allows pilots to survive long enough to become deadly. Against it, the Zero's elegance becomes a liability, its lightness a death sentence. On the Japanese side, desperation takes hold. New pilots are rushed through abbreviated training. Fuel shortages cut flight hours to a fraction of what Sakai once logged before combat. Tactics simplify, losses mount. Eventually, the unthinkable becomes doctrine aircraft loaded with explosives, pilots given one-way missions. The sky that once crowned Japanese aces becomes a corridor of sacrifice. Hellcats meet these attacks too, tearing them apart before they reach their targets. There is no duel now, no contest of skill, just interception and destruction. By war's end, the numbers tell the story in cold, unforgiving clarity. The Hellcat achieves an estimated kill ratio of nearly 19-1 against Japanese aircraft. It becomes the most successful naval fighter in history, not because it was beautiful, but because it was relentless. The Pacific sky belongs to the United States. As the war grinds toward its brutal conclusion, the sound of Japanese engines grows rarer, then vanishes almost entirely. For American pilots, the danger shifts from dogfights to flak and weather. Air superiority has been decided. Long before the final surrender, the Zero fades into legend, remembered for its early brilliance, its deadly grace. The Hellcat remains something else entirely, the instrument that ended an era.